Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin. Like every Monday, I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com. Doug, it's February 28th. That means tomorrow is March. And bring on the madness, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well, and yes, I feel exactly the same way. Let's get it going. In fact, tonight, for the 28th, there's actually one college tournament game, that's getting going. So that starts the whole process up. And I think March Madness, though, came early this past weekend based on the top 10 for college basketball, as that was, it was officially the craziest day ever.
Gonzaga lost, Arizona lost, Purdue lost. That's a top three. Yeah, Texas Tech lost. It was number 9.
Yeah, it was the top 6 or 7 all lost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was just nuts, that to see that, and Gonzaga actually being drilled.
Yeah, they were never in the game.
Nope.
Yeah. So much for everybody saying it's a cakewalk to go through that West Coast Conference. It's not. St. Mary's, by the way, with that win, catapulted themselves to number 19 in the country.
Yeah.
And that takes me to this, Doug. A lot of these small conference tournaments will be beginning this week and some next week. And I know you have some thoughts in that regard.
Yeah, I do, and it's a as we like to do here, it's a cautionary tale for the most part. Okay, and so if this season you have, you can pick the different conferences. Like I can say this week, for example, we got the Missouri Valley, we got the Northeastern Conference, Ohio Valley, Patriot, Summit, and some of those are all out there. And if you have not played those conferences this year and followed them regularly, I'm going to say now is not the time to do it. Okay, especially in the early rounds of these tournaments, because you're completely unfamiliar with the teams. Yes, you can look up their record. Yes, you can look up some basic stats, but your knowledge just isn't that good. And that would be true if even, not like myself, I would consider the Missouri Valley a league that most people I would think that bet. But if you haven't followed the Missouri Valley, it's the same thing. Don't do it early, okay? Because you're talking about teams for the most part you don't know. And also, especially the early rounds, you're talking about teams that are not that good. And I can come up with a real good example. I'm not going to name who this person is. I wouldn't say he's necessarily well-known anyways, but he has a pick for tonight's game. It is Central Connecticut against Fairleigh Dickinson. Okay, it's the first round. These two teams are our last in the Northeastern Conference, and Fairleigh Dickinson actually has the distinction, Ross, and I think you'll chuckle on this one. Their conference record is 5-13, in last place, and their overall record is 4-21, which of course makes no sense. But the reason for that, and I can only surmise this is the case, is that conference, they awarded forfeits or games that were canceled. They awarded a team a win or a loss. So in theory, they picked up a conference win, even though they didn't pick up.
And the NCAA overall doesn't recognize it. Yes,
right. They don't recognize that.
Yeah, I was starting to worry a little bit trying to follow that train of thought. And I know I'm pretty good in math, and so are you. But whoa, anyway, yes. Good point. So Doug, people don't realize there's 357 Division I teams out there. It's impossible to follow them all. So we have a tendency, because the most interest is in the major conferences, and then conferences like the Missouri Valley. I even look at the Horizon. But when you start getting into these smaller conferences, like you just mentioned, the Northeast Conference, the Patriot Conference, even the Ivy League, if you're not following it, it's tough. Just because it's the only games on the board that day, and it's a short board, and half of the board is one of those conference tournaments, doesn't mean you have to bet them, folks. Anyway, I didn't mean to cut you off there. So did you have anything else you wanted to add?
The only other thing I would like to say, if that's in regards to that, is that if you are looking at, for example, if you want, if you're interested enough in, and, like when we get to maybe this Saturday, and for sure the following Saturday, and especially the following said when there's just fewer games overall, we're probably talking about 25 games, I believe, or so on the following Saturday. When that happens, if you're interested in that, I don't have a problem, or not that I should anyways, but there's no problem looking at that game because you have the balance of how the conference tournament has played out. So you see how the upsets have come. You've seen how the favorites have played. So you have knowledge to work with, to look at, to understand it, as opposed to trying to figure out a whole body of work of which you have absolutely nothing to understand or to look at. So in that regard, if you want to play a conference final, of a particular tournament, I think that's, you at least you have something to work with.
Yeah. And there's always one conference that sends a team with a losing record, because these are one bid conferences, folks. And there's always one team from a conference that is a number 7 or 8 seed that ends up winning the tournament. And, you have a team that's 23-8 on the year, 15-1 in the conference, and they get knocked out in the semis and they don't even get a tournament bid, and somebody who's 12-13 do. So that's exactly what Doug's alluding to. It's very topsy-turvy at this time of year. And most of these small conferences are not played at a neutral site. They're played at the higher seed. The home team is the higher seed. So again, anything else you want to add in that regard? Let me ask you this, that question and this. Is there a team out there? I mean, we keep hearing, Doug, these announcers. I've heard it several times over the weekend, watching a plethora of college basketball. There's 8 teams that really have a legitimate chance to win the national title, and really no thinking outside the box. Now we know who those 8 teams are for the most part, without having to be redundant and repeat them over. Some of the teams that got knocked off this weekend are, Gonzaga, Purdue, Arizona, and there's a couple other ones. Do you have a team outside of that box that you think can make a legitimate run, Doug?
Yeah, I actually do. No, they're just outside of it, okay, in terms of their odds, but and it was kind of solidified for me. I mean, the number one thing you have to think of, okay, in all of this is what teams are capable of winning 6 games. Okay, that's the absolute point of where you have to start. And if you start matching teams, even amongst the top group, and you say, I don't know if they could beat this team, well, then that's probably a team you shouldn't consider. So one team that has definitely got my attention is Arkansas. And I saw Arkansas's odds of late. I think they're 5,500. I think that puts them like 11th or 12th, at least one sports book I looked at before, I started doing this with you. And I mean, this is a team that is just on fire in the best conference in college basketball, and playing these elite teams pretty much game after game and beating them.
Yep.
Okay. The other thing that you have to consider, and you have seen that this is true of Arkansas, they are well coached. Okay. So that's a big plus, but also what kind of NBA quality talent do they have? Because seldom does a team win a championship without having at least 2, if not 3, NBA quality players. And I'm not talking about superstars, okay? Talking about players that, could play in the league, are likely to play in the league for a period of time. The best example, I always go back, and I forget the year, I want to say 1988, could be 89, when Kansas upset Oklahoma. Billy Tubbs and the Sooners. That team, it was Danny Manning and the No Names.
Yeah.
Okay, that was that team. As it turns out, though, 3 guys in that team played in the NBA for at least, I think it was 3, if not 4 years. Now, 2 of them essentially were, 9th or 10th guys on the bench. Okay, that's all they were, but they did play in the NBA. So from a talent standpoint, they were good enough to be part of an NBA roster. So that's how I look at it. And I definitely think that Arkansas right today without, with injuries or whatever could happen next couple of weeks, I think it's a team that is very capable of winning a national championship.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you. As a matter of fact, I had Arkansas over Kentucky on Saturday, -3. I said, here's Arkansas, the lower rated team. They're a 3-point favorite against number 3 at the time, Kentucky. Think about that for a second, because if the game was being played at Kentucky and you make the adjustments for home court advantage, Kentucky's only a 3 or 4-point favorite at home against Arkansas. So that tells you I trust the odds makers unequivocally over, and I've said this numerous times and I'll continue to say it. I trust them unequivocally over the people who bet or vote on the polls. So, and they've won 13 of their last 14 now, and their only loss was by 1 at Alabama, number 25 in the country. So this is a team that's in Musselman. He is a very good coach. If people don't remember him, he's the guy who led Nevada to the Elite Eight a couple of years ago. And he's a really, really good coach. And he has NBA coaching experience as well. So there you go. Hand in hand with your point, Doug. Again, I'm going to stick to my guns. I know that they lost on Saturday. I'm going to go with Texas Tech. Now, I know people say they have shortcomings offensively, and I get that. And I don't disagree with that. They lose to TCU on Saturday, 69-66, and they shot 58% from the field and lost the game. Why? Because for the first time all season long, they allowed an opponent to shoot 50% or better. And this is a team that plays very physical. And we've heard Jay Billis say many times on a national broadcast on ESPN how freedom of movement is no longer exist in college basketball, how the officiating has adjusted to letting the kids play more, and it's more physical. And there's no more physical conference that plays great defense across the board like the Big 12. And I think that teams outside of the Big 12 facing a team like Texas Tech are going to have a really difficult time because regardless of that defensive effort on Saturday, and even though they allowed TCU to shoot 50%, they only allowed 69 points in that game. So I'm thinking anybody outside the Big 12 who's not used to playing a Big 12 team, specifically Texas Tech, who plays tremendous defense, is physical, is disciplined, and they beat themselves the other day with 20 turnovers. That's not going to happen again, okay? So I would keep a real eye on them because I'm of the opinion that I think this current Texas Tech team is every bit as good as the one that went to the final 2 years ago and lost in overtime. So we'll see. I mean, Texas Tech and Arkansas, keep an eye on them, folks. You're going to get good odds. It's worth a small bet. And you know what? Just lay something down on them, and you never know what happens. If one of the two wins, you're going to make a lot of money. So anyway, Doug, free pick for Tuesday, March the 1st in college basketball.
Yes, and the pressure's on, Ross. I've now won 8 in a row and 10 out of 11 with free picks. And so as is, I guess, normally Doug's case, talking in the third person here, is that I'm going to go a little bit off the radar on this one. I'm going to talk about Southern Utah and Montana State of the Big Sky Conference. Now, some of you, I had mentioned about, not knowing about different conferences. Well, this is one that not everyone's going to know about. These are the two best teams in the Big Sky Conference. Utah State is first. One game behind is Southern Utah. They played actually as of March 1st. They will have played 10 days ago, and Montana State won at Cedar City, Utah, 76-71 as 3-point underdogs. Now, Utah State will obviously then, of course, have the motivation, especially on a short turnaround, to get things going. And with an upset, they would be in a tie then with Montana State for first place. Montana State comes in, Ross, having lost 2 of their last 3 games, and both of those were on the road at tough places to play in that conference, specifically Eastern Washington and against in-state rival Montana last Saturday. In breaking down the numbers, I'll look at these two teams pretty even. Not completely, though. There's edges that Montana State has pretty much across the board, small edges, mind you, on offense and defense, both inside and outside the arc. So I look at all of that information. The Bobcats, in this case, they are 10-1 straight up at home, winning by 12.1 points per game. And against good rebounding teams like Southern Utah, they are 10-1. Excuse me, I just made a mistake there. My apologies. 10-2 against teams with rebound margin of +4 or higher. Okay, so I hopefully got that under control there. Southern Utah, good club. Okay, as I mentioned, but 0-7 all time. Okay, at Montana State, and coming off their 80-74 win at Montana. Guess what? 2-12 against the spread in their next game after scoring 80 or more points. I'm going to go Montana State, Ross, -4 on Tuesday to take down Southern Utah.
Yeah, and Southern Utah was a lot of the experts like them to win the Big Sky at the in the preseason, and very experienced team. But Montana State's tough, and we'll see. That's going to be a good game. Here's a question for you: Southern Utah, what's their nickname?
The Thunderbirds, I believe.
The Thunderbirds. See, I always know Doug. He's a wealth of information, man. I'm telling you. You know, and talking about that other topic, remember Butler when they went to back-to-back NCAA tournament Final Fours, actually back-to-back championship games. The one they nearly won against Duke. One of their players is still in the NBA now and a starter and making a lot of money. That's Gordon Hayward. Anyway, I'm going to take a look. By the way, folks, my college basketball, I'm 26-11 as of today in my last 37 picks in college basketball. So I'm red hot going into the month of March. You can find all my picks at rbwins.com. Doug's picks at docsports.com. And don't forget, folks, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, take a second to do so. Costs you absolutely nothing. While you're there, hit that notification bell. You'll be alerted to any of our sports betting videos going up on this channel. Providence at Villanova. These teams played just 2 weeks ago. I'm going to concentrate on a total in this game, which is now 133. Again, folks, keep in mind, we are taping 24 hours in advance. Why do I say that? Because I always say we grade our plays what the line was at the time we made the video. Last Thursday, NBA video, I gave you Houston over 228.5. The next morning, it was up to 234. The game landed on 230. I won my bet. Doug went under on his bet and his pace selections. We both won. Anyway, by the way, we're 9-1 with our last 5 videos combined. I'm the guy who's got the only loss because Doug hasn't lost in about 3 months. Anyway, Providence at Villanova again. These teams, like I said, met 2 weeks ago. Villanova walked away with an 89-84 win. That game easily went over the total of 131.5. This is a Villanova team that's now gone over in their last 6 whenever there's a total of 144 or less, and this certainly qualifies. In those 6 games, there was a combined 152 points scored per contest. Providence, who had a lot of difficulty scoring at the beginning of the year and was winning with defense and disciplined play, they've gone 4-1 to the over in their last 5 and a combined average of 153.4 points scored per game. And by the way, that Providence Friars team that struggled to score early on, they averaged 80.4 points per game over their last 5. And this is also a Providence team that scored 71 points or more in their last 7. Villanova has scored 69 points or more in their last 8, and its total is only 133. And Villanova at home, how about averaging 78 points a game, shooting 49% from the field and 42% from three-point range. I like this game to be similar to what we saw before. Maybe not, we're not going to see 170 points, but somewhere in the 150s. I just wanted to go over 133. That's Providence. Villanova over 133, and Doug Upstone, he likes Montana State over Southern Utah. Doug, what do you got going on this week? What could the folks look forward to?
Yes, well, it's another big week of college basketball. We finish up the regular season for many of the conferences, and of course, as we talked about, some of these less familiar conferences start up their conference tournaments. So it's go time, Ross. We both know that, and here we go. And I'm excited. I'm coming off a really nice. I had a 7-unit play on Saturday with North Texas out of Conference USA. They got the job done late, but they got the job done. So that was a nice winner. NBA continues to roll, Ross, 20-8 of late in the NBA. So just continued to march along, got off to a good start in the so-called second half of the season as we get going. And in golf, picked up another winning week. So happy about that one as we get ready for the Bay Hill Invitational, Ross. So here we go, March Madness, baby, and it's just an exciting time of year. I'm a big fan of the bowl season, but this is
there's nothing that compares. No, you're right, absolutely. I mean, the bowl season to me, when you talk about important games, there's only 4 teams that have a chance to win the national championship once the regular season ends. There's 68, that have a chance in the NCAA tournament. Now, chance is a word that we really have to dance around, because most of those teams really don't have a realistic chance, but they get to play in the big dance, and we always see some upsets, and boy, is that exciting. Anyway, like I alluded to, guys, 26-11 with my last 37 college basketball picks. That's good for 70%. And also in the NBA, not quite as hot as Doug, but 16-9. 64% with my last 25, and that includes a stellar 10-3 with my last 13 NBA totals. And my overall picks, which is college basketball, the NBA, and then of course over the last 30 days we just had the Super Bowl. So all my picks are 63-39 since January 28th, and that's good for 62%, folks. That's a pretty large sample size and an excellent winning percentage, which tells me and tells you that my clients are making money, and you should jump in, because this time of year is the toughest for novice bettors and somebody who doesn't have a lot of time on their hands to actually handicap games. You got 2 guys right here that have a winning history and are proven winners. It's Doug Upstone over at DocSports.com, Ross Benjamin at RBWins.com. Until the next time, folks, me and Doug will be back on Thursday. Me and Chip will be back tomorrow. And until the next time, for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, good luck and God bless, folks.